Shalom and welcome, guys. We are here, or not here in Yael's case. This is the TBN Israel podcast. First of all, guys, happy birthday, America. You don't look a year over 247 years old. Happy 4th of July to Happy 4th of July to all our American viewers. Yael, where are you right now? Yael, where are you right now?
Well, I am actually now at the TBN studios in Manhattan, New York City, and I'm going to be here celebrating the 4th of July with our fellow Americans, the biggest allies of Israel that showed up, not with one, not with two. I don't remember how many B-2 bombers came to help us in this operation against Iran, but it was really appreciated, and it enabled me to leave the country because the flights resumed right after the bombs were dropped on the Ayatollah regime, on their nuclear facilities. And we're going to discuss this cooperation between Israel, between the United States. What does Iran have left? And what is Israel doing now in order to win this war completely, get our hostages back? Looks like it's a circle, and we are going back into the Gaza Strip to end what was started when Hamas invaded the Jewish state. And before that, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit this little button here. It helps us. It helps the algorithm of YouTube circulate this video and reach more people with what's happening. And Tomer is very proud of me for remembering that before he has to mention it himself. Right, Tomer?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, no one said we don't improve. It just takes us 2 years to learn something. Anyway, Yael, first of all, it's good to see you. And guys, let's recap why we're here today. People think the war is over. The war isn't over. We are right now in this transition phase where things are confusing and things are changing almost on a daily basis. Not that they haven't before, but now it's slightly different. And the headlines seem very, very hard to track. So we're here to try to organize where we're standing. We're back at war in the Gaza Strip, and we need to explain why, and we'll get to that in a second. And we need to explain the purpose or the goal of the IDF in this entire operation. But really, before we get started, let's just remind everyone how we got here. And we'll start with last week, we beat the Iranians. And I mean, and we did that together with the Americans. There's no bigger celebration, I think, that we've celebrated in many, many years, Yael. We're here right now celebrating the 4th of July. And I want to say this before we get into content, to say thank you to everyone in the U.S. For standing with Israel, for supporting Israel. Thank you, President Donald Trump. Again, I don't think we could have asked for more support, done more generously, more in a more exuberant way than what we experienced from the U.S., specifically since Trump has been in office. What we witnessed last week, fighting against Iran, almost holding hands on the jets flying over Iranian airspace.
Yeah.
What an image, and what an incredible way to sort of enter into the 4th of July weekend. Seeing the Americans support Israel, again, for me as an Israeli, for you as an Israeli visiting the U.S., this is a historic time that we're living in.
Yeah, definitely, Monty, 100%. And I just visited yesterday an aircraft carrier. This is an old aircraft carrier from, I think, the Second World War, and also a nuclear submarine, also from the Cold War era. And these are just amazing machineries and technologies that the United States of America had. And I just am imagining the magnitude and the capabilities that were developed up until today, and the amount of technology that the United States has all around the Islamic Republic of Iran now. I wouldn't want to be challenging, threatening, or even, saying anything to annoy this type of military power that the United States has. And I'm really, really happy that they are our biggest ally in the world. And it's really encouraging to see that they have these abilities and that they use it in order to, preserve the freedoms of the world against these regimes that threaten to kill not just Israel, but also the United States of America. And guys, this regime, the Ayatollah regime in Iran, they have been threatening to annihilate Israel, the United States, and basically every infidel. Infidel means basically everybody that does not believe their radical point of view regarding religion and regarding the world. And imagine having them having nuclear bombs. This what was stopped by Israel and by the United States of America. So to all of you that say, stop the war, it's important that we stop the war by removing the weapons of mass destruction from the enemies of the West, Israel, the United States, and
That's
Europe.
right.
Just a side note to everything.
So as we're entering into this conversation about what's going on in the Gaza Strip, I think we need to talk about what Iran's experienced. They lost Syria, they lost their foothold in Lebanon through, or as experts like to say, vis-a-vis Hezbollah. I always find that funny. And the Iranian government admits...
That's French, right? Mati, that's French.
Yeah.
French, right?
Apparently, when you get a master's in international relations, one of the things you learn is a bunch of phrases to use on television interviews. Anyway, I'm saying that jokingly. Anyway, so the Iranians admit this week, and they say this is the worst strike we've ever experienced. And after investing for decades in the axis of resistance, as they called it, Iran is dealing with the worst conflict that they've ever had with proxies. And the internal source within Iran is telling us that they've started scaling back on their support of proxy warfare. And again, imagine it from their perspective. Never have they ever been dealt such a blow to all their proxies and then to their own defenses at once. And that really allows the U.S., and I think we talked about this a lot on yesterday's Boots report, allows the U.S. together with Israel to pivot all the international relations towards reshaping the region in a new series of agreements. And the last big piece that needs to fall into place is the Gaza Strip. And that's why Israel's doubling down on the efforts on the Gaza Strip. That's why the U.S. is doubling down on the efforts on the negotiation, because this is the sort of last piece that is mandatory, that is sort of almost conditional of any other agreement taking place. Everything that follows after this, the Abraham Accords, the agreements, the regional stability, peace in the Middle East, that all happens after the issue of Hamas Gaza is resolved and the hostages are returned home. And that's why we're talking today about the fact that the IDF we've upped the level of intensity from let's say a 5 to a 9 in the Gaza Strip. 5 armored divisions, a massive amount of fighting force, massive amount of artillery, of Air Force activity, and in the background, a huge amount of negotiating power and effort going into trying to bring an end to the war taking place in the Gaza Strip. Again, we're going on more than 18 months at this point of this conflict, 19 months, many months of fighting taking place in the Gaza Strip, and we're pushing as hard as we possibly can to end Hamas as a fighting force in the Gaza Strip and bring Hamas to negotiate in good favor and return the hostages.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mati, so far we have Division 162, Division 99, Division 36, Division 401, and the Nahal Brigade combat team as well operating in the Gaza Strip. This is accompanied with all the Air Force of Israel that have returned from their operations above the skies of Iran that are now supporting the ground maneuvering forces in the Gaza Strip. And just as of a few days ago, according to the IDF statements, Israel is controlling around 75% of the Gaza Strip territory. At the same time, the IDF, Israel, and the GHF, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, are still every day delivering food, humanitarian aid, and basic necessities to the Gazan population in the Strip, while Israel and the IDF forces are operating against the terror cells of Hamas. Hamas is still placing their headquarters in hospitals, like they like to do and did since day one of this war. This is where they're located. And Hamas still has around 20 living hostages in Gaza and around 53 in total, including the remains of hostages that were killed after being kidnapped from Israel into the Gaza Strip. Okay, this is the situation. The two main goals of this operation is 1, to dismantle Hamas, 2, to bring the hostages. The order of these two objectives keep changing, with the Israeli Prime Minister now saying the hostages are number 1, dismantling Hamas number 2, but it goes back and forth all the time. And now they say that they go together. which I think that I agree has to go together. And there is a new ceasefire agreement on the table presented by Qatar, not by America now, that Israel is, according to report, accepting it, and Hamas is still negotiating amongst themselves if they want to accept this deal or not. The deal will bring 10 living hostages at stage 1, and then 18 more remains of hostages after 2 weeks or a bit more than that. And then in the meantime, there will be discussions to end this war on a permanent basis. So this is a 60-day ceasefire, not an end to the war. This is what is on the table at the moment in Gaza.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this isn't the first, second, third, or 50th time that these type of agreements are being floated by many, many, many mediators. We had the U.S. talking directly to Hamas, by the way, with Witkoff back, 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago.
It's
and
the fourth time Witkoff changing his
proposal.
His proposal.
Yeah, and you had the Egyptians, and you've had the Qataris, and for the U.S. again. This goes back and forth. It usually ends the same way. It usually ends with a Hamas making up some absolute nonsense excuse, which is, we'll do it as long as, something ridiculous. You cease to exist as a nation and promise to never lift bare arms against the people of Gaza again. Something outrageous like that. And essentially it's just like they're just wasting time and time again, expecting for things to implode. This time around, things are different. They're different on multiple levels. One, Israel of today isn't the Israel of 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
No.
Today's Israel is not the Israel before June 13th and the attack on Iran. And neither is the U.S., by the way. And that's important to note because Israel and the U.S. have proven an ability and a willingness to exact a higher level of violence and military resolve than other countries were expecting up till now. And because of that, Hamas needs to look on, and I think they're realizing this, and understand that we're willing to be more, in a good way, ruthless and resolute in bringing an end to the conflict with them.
How many years the Iranian regime built his ring of death around Israel?
Over 40 years.
And
It depends how you count, because they've been doing it. It's been, since they were established, they were an enemy of Israel. But since the early 80s, essentially.
And how long it took to Hezbollah to gain his power and become this monster that we...
Since the early 80s.
So how long it took us to...
It took us
to destroy,
to
dismantle them?
Yeah.
I think it's more than a couple of months. But that's also with pre-planning of Mossad operations that were conducted for years before that.
Yeah, but 10 years of intelligence gathering. And,
exactly.
and 30 days of military operations against Hezbollah.
This is our third time that we are running over Gaza to bring the hostages back and fight. Can you explain our audience why Gaza is such a hard fighting area?
Gaza is one of the most densely populated areas in the world. And I need to explain this. For those of you who have never seen images of Gaza or been in Gaza, Yair and I have seen both. Both firsthand and Tomer too. Gaza is a list or a series of small, very compressed camps and towns. It's not one mega city, and that's important to note. There's a bunch of open space between the different areas, and more, let's call it agricultural or agrarian type societies, and then really, really, really packed refugee camps and city centers. And in those city centers, dense population, really from the beginning, before the war even started, very crumbly and, dilapidated looking buildings. And the IDF is operating in that unbelievably densely populated area, at the same time trying to avoid killing any innocent civilians, and at the same time trying not to cause the death of any of the hostages. So we're essentially operating on a military level with our hands half tied behind our backs. And we're doing so willingly because we value and cherish life to a great degree. And because of that, operations in Gaza take a lot of time. By the way, I want to say a lot of time is a very relative term. I remember talking about this when we were early on in reserves 2 years ago, almost at this point, in November, December of 2023. And there were American experts that came. You remember this? That came to Israel, and they did a case study on what would it take to attack or take over Gaza. These are the people that were responsible for some of the ground assaults in Afghanistan and in Iraq against ISIS, and then several other entities, insurgencies. And then they say these, it says it's going to be multiple years. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties and tens of thousands of IDF casualties. And the numbers are far from that. The IDF, in a matter of months, took over the Gaza Strip. And we're now in the process, and this is important to understand, of clearing out the Gaza Strip from Hamas presence. And then this is where it gets complicated. What that actually means is when you understand that almost every home in the Gaza Strip holds weapons, as a sniper's nest, an anti-tank nest, or hiding under the beds of children, grenades, rockets,
grenades,
explosives. What does it mean? I mean, I think, Yael, you've seen this firsthand in this last war. What does it mean to clear out terrorism presence? You essentially have to bring down half the houses in the Gaza Strip. I mean, it's so deeply embedded within the society there.
Yeah, basically everywhere you step in Gaza, you find either a tear tunnel that is dug underneath one of the bedrooms in a civilian house. The schools are all the hub and the command centers for Hamas, as same as the hospitals, same as the mosques, and basically everywhere where, according to international law, shouldn't be a military zone is used for terrorism by Hamas. And they're not smart, they're not stupid. They did that intentionally because it will make it a lot harder, and it does, for Israel to wage a war against Hamas. They are embedded inside the civilian population, using the civilians as human shields. And that's why this war is taking so long, because Hamas is not just the military force in the Gaza Strip. They're also the civil administration. They are the health ministry. They are the education ministry. They are the employment ministry. So basically every information that is coming out of Gaza is filtered by Hamas. That's why where you hear the numbers of casualties amongst the civilians in Gaza, where does this number come from? From the health ministry of Gaza. Who's the health minister? A Hamas member. And who's the education minister? A Hamas member. That's why the society has been brainwashed for more than 20 years to hate Israel, that the only future is armed resistance against the people of Israel and the Jewish people, that the only good job that you can have is either to be a tunnel digger, to be a terrorist, to be a rocket launcher, to be part of the Izzadim al-Qassam brigades, or any other terrorist organization that is waging war against Israel. That's why it is so hard, and it's so hard to understand who's a terrorist and who's not a terrorist in the Gaza Strip. Everything is very gray when you're talking about this ideology and death cult called Hamas. And that's what we're dealing with. That's why it's taking so much time to clear everything out. And I think that the successes that Israel had so far has been, number one, cutting off the humanitarian aid from Hamas and giving it directly to the people, which is weird, but we're getting, a lot of fire from the international community on doing that. I mean, that's just always shocking me to understand and hear that we're giving food to our enemies and we're getting fire from it,
Yes. So let's frame this. So I think you've encapsulated a lot of what's been happening there. The IDF, and people might ask now, well, why is it taking so long to do this whole operation? This is a really prolonged process. And in this process, the IDF, together with the Israeli government and U.S. aid, we've done a lot to systematically break away the components of power that make the Hamas organization. Part of that is, as you mentioned, the financial elements of food control and resource control in the Gaza Strip. So we've worked to eliminate that. Another one is their military power. So that's eliminating much of the fighting force of Hamas, which we've done highly successfully. Another one is restricting their movement and their sort of ability and freedom to control the population and fight. So we're doing that by sort of closing off certain areas and then moving the population, or moving Hamas. Anyway, sort of controlling and quartering off areas within the Gaza Strip. We're distributing food directly to the people. And now comes the last part of it, which is the end of the last military part of it, which is the end of the military operation in the Gaza Strip, by eliminating the last two divisions that sort of have a fighting ability. And then there's the big piece that comes, which is the diplomatic agreement.
But before that, what is Hamas' status right now? What power they have? because we're having losses every day.
Yes. So let's put a pin in that for just 1 minute, because I think this is a really good opportunity to talk about today's partner that's making this show possible. So our partner today is thanks guys. Our partner today is the Joseph Project. And the Joseph Project, and I like saying this, Yael, when we talk about this on the show, is that these are people who we know. We know them personally.
Exactly.
We know their operations personally. We've seen their work, and we can vouch for it personally. Not I heard about, not I saw. I've seen these people. I know the people that work in the organization. They're good people across the board. They do quality work in this country. Yael, maybe you want to tell us about what they do specifically.
Yeah, sure, Mati. So these guys are providing hands-on humanitarian aid to the people of Israel. I mean, you constantly hear in the news about the dire situation in the Gaza Strip, Palestinian people, maybe the people of Iran, Lebanon, but also in Israel. We have been at war for 30 days now, and it costs money. 634. It costs money. People have to go away from their jobs. They leave the family, the business, and then they put on a uniform and become a tank commander, an infantry platoon commander, an Air Force pilot, or whatever. This has an effect on the economy because somebody pays the salaries now. And that's the company, that's the country, that's Israel. People are losing their jobs. The wives need to stay at home with the kids, or vice versa, because women also serve in the IDF. So it has a very, very heavy toll on the economy in Israel, and many people are not making it. It's important to be clear about this. And I'm talking about the weaker elements of society. Let's start with the Holocaust survivors. Yes, they survived the Holocaust, and now they are in Israel, and they don't have enough money for food, for heating, for air conditioning, the basic necessities in life is very hard for them. So this is where this organization comes in. The Joseph Project comes in and gives aid, gives food, gives support to Holocaust survivors, to the elderly, to the weak elements of the Israeli society that need it the most. And moreover, when you give to this organization, you are making a stand for Israel, because Christians supporting in a practical way to help the people of Israel during this time is just amazing encouragement for the people of Israel. I've seen it when there are groups of, it's called solidarity groups, coming to Israel and then helping physically, just, picking fruits from fields that were left alone because nobody of the Israelis were there to pick up the apples, and they came in and helped the farmers. That's a stand with Israel, and it helps a lot. And same thing goes with every hot meal that is provided by this organization to the people of Israel during this time, okay? So guys, this is a way to help Israel in a practical way. So if you want to stand with the people of Israel and support those that need help in this land during these very hard times, you can go to josephprojectsupport.com. Again, that's josephprojectsupport.com. You can make a donation, and that way this food or aid or whatever is needed will go to the people of Israel. And it will also help us, TBN Israel, to create more content. This is how we partner with this organization, and this is another way to help us and help the people of Israel at the same time. So I think that's all. Anything to add, Mati?
Again, I think you said that very, very well. Again, if people are asking about the efficacy of giving a donation, the way they do this, they bring in a lot of aid from the outside of the country, and they're really effective in the bang per buck side of things. So it's a lot of aid for a small amount of money, where your donation covers mostly the logistics, and they get a lot of the goods brought into the country almost for free. So it's a really effective way of doing things. One, I'm happy that we have them as a partner, yeah. And I think we go back, we're talking about, aiding the people of Israel. Let's talk about aiding the people of Gaza. So the number one, and we always talk about this, the number one victim of Islamic radical terrorism is always Muslims. It doesn't matter where it is in the world. The first, second, third people to suffer from this are the locals. The number one people group suffering from Hamas right now, they're not the Israelis. No. They're the people of Gaza. Hamas are now on their sort of, they're playing defense. They're weakened dramatically. These people have been using extreme violence against their own people. There are images coming out in recent weeks.
Wow, that's terrible.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
They beat their people in the streets.
Shoot them.
They shoot people standing in line to receive food. This is the kind of organization that they are.
Motorcycle by the leg and just driving.
Look, they're if you think ISIS, same ideology. It's radical, it's violent, it's destructive in its nature, and it always leads to death and to suffering for people. And these are the people that rule the Gaza Strip. These are the kind of people that are willing to burn down food warehouses to prevent food from getting to their people. These are the kind of people that are willing to kill family members, to kill innocent civilians, to prevent them from getting aid from international organizations. This is who leads the people of Gaza, and their people need a relief from that. And when you ask that question of like the morality of why does the IDF continue its operations in the Gaza Strip, that's the answer. Because we're fighting for what's good. And the Hamas is what is evil. It's not the other side of the coin. It's not they have also a legitimate expression of whatever, nationality or whatever they want to call it. They are a vile terrorist organization that is destructive in everything that it does. And in a similar way to what every proxy and ideological friend of the Iranians is and has been, they bring only death and destruction to their people on a moral level, on a financial level, on a spiritual level, and on a practical level. It's death and destruction time and time again. There is no other alternative to that. And we're fighting a very just war, trying to relieve the people of Gaza from Hamas control, release Israeli hostages, and go back to living a life worth living in this part of the world. And I want to say this, Yael, and take this to maybe a positive place. What has happened in the last 3 weeks is history in the making. It's history in the making because we can now talk together with the U.S. about rebuilding the Middle East. Now that sort of like the plague of Iran's influence on this region is removed to a certain degree, where their influence is dramatically weakened, and their hold over Lebanon and Syria and Gaza and sort of, Yemen, not yet. It's weakened, and their projection of power is weakened. Now other countries can look at this and say, well, they're not as strong as we thought they are. Let's now form an alliance. And that brings us to the question of Abraham Accords following the victory in the Gaza Strip. We finished Gaza, we finished with the story with Hamas, and the next thing that happens in this region, and I want to say this, it's hugely hopeful and positive, is the next phase of the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, which can be amazing because it can include now Lebanon without the element of Iran and Hezbollah. It can include Syria without the element of Bashar al-Assad and Iran and Hezbollah. And it can include multiple other countries, hopefully, Saudi Arabia, and even reinforcement of peace agreements that exist now, like with Israel and Egypt, Israel and Jordan. It just proves again and again that peace is being made in the Middle East with the strong parties. And I think that the United States and Israel have proven that when you project, and not just project, when you're strong, people will want to do peace with you, will want to do agreements with you. And this is the language of the Middle East. I know it's a bit different than the language of Europe and the United States and the West, but this is the language that players in the Middle East understand, speak, and respect. So I think that by ending the war in the Gaza Strip, we are opening a door to years and years of prosperity and economic cooperation, and I hope also cultural, bridging and peace between peoples and flowing of ideas. I mean, also tourism. I want to visit Damascus. I want to visit, Lebanon, Tehran. It can be cool places to see and film there. Boots on the grounds of Tehran, Mati.
Yeah. Well, apparently Israel's had a whole lot of boots on the ground in Iran in recent months and years.
Oh,
probably.
flip-flops on the grounds of Yemen. That can be also another show.
It's not as catchy as boots on the ground. Flip-flops on the ground. Maybe we call it Crocs on the ground. That's a little more. So listen. So we talked about the Abraham Accords, and I think this is really where all of this is going, and why. You asked this question: why is the IDF operating with such intensity in the Gaza Strip? That's a clear answer. We're operating with intensity because it's time to resolve this conflict, and more so. Look, these kind of wars, the minute they stagnate, which is what's happening right now in the Gaza Strip, they become dangerous.
Stagnate? They begin or they end?
It stands still, like stagnant waters, water that doesn't move. Guys, I don't know if people know this, but Yair asks these questions. He knows the answer. He asks these questions for people at home that might not know these words. He's actually
this one. Actually, I did not know the question for this one, but thanks, Mati. Now I know.
So once these conflicts stagnate, which means they stand still, it becomes far more dangerous. And what we've seen in recent weeks with IDF operations is a relatively long series of casualties on the IDF side. And the reason for that is because when you are, as an army, a heavy army, are fighting guerrilla warfare against guerrilla warfare terrorists, and you are heavy and you're static, you, by the nature of it, start carrying casualties in your operations. And you start making mistakes because you become predictable. And for the IDF, that's the last place we want to be on earth. We want to be quick, we want to be nimble, we want to be effective, and we want to get out of the Gaza Strip. Look, we have enough of a country. It's a beautiful country. Let's leave the Gaza Strip to the people of Gaza. We want to end the military operation there. The problem is Hamas. And we can't end the operation while Hamas are still there. And it doesn't, there's this expression, you can't square.
2 division only stayed left.
2 divisions of terrorists is not a small number of people.
Yeah, but
plus
again,
they keep recruiting, Tomer. They keep recruiting young Palestinians, and I'm talking about 13-year-olds, right?
Even 10, they got arrested. The
this reminds us of like militias in Africa. They remind us of African militias now.
Yes,
they just recruit children, give them an RPG, and tell them, "Go, shoot at this tank."
Yes,
and this is the situation, and that's why it's very hard to battle that. Plus, they still have our hostages. So I hope that this deal will at least release, half of the livings and the remains of the others. And then the rest will also need to be released, either by a military operation or by a complete surrender.
I need to ask you, this is more commentary than anything. Do you think, Yair, an agreement for half the hostages is something that we should go for? I feel physically sick from that idea.
Yeah, it's hard to think that some of them will stay there
forever.
Yeah, I think it needs to be everybody at once, or full-on military operation to bring them back home. But it depends in the details of this agreement and what can snap them back. I would take a few hostages to come back home now, and then try to fight for the rest.
But it's look like that Hamas gonna have some more hit in the next couple of days. Trump is pushing Qatar to take out the Hamas leader. They are in Doha. It's mean for the IDF, or more the Mossad show that the moment they leaving those places, they're more or less dead men.
I don't know, Tomer. I get very upset thinking about the idea of releasing half the hostages. Look, we're dealing with this vile terrorist organization. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but this is my personal perception. Is okay. Let's say there's only 10 living hostages left in the Gaza Strip. That's
They're
10.
Talking about 20, but
no. I mean after they give you half. After. So and there's only 10. We gave up for Gilad Shalit. We gave over 1,000 terrorists, arch terrorists. We're talking.
Yahya Sinwar.
Yahya Sinwar was one of the people released in that transaction.
Yeah.
So it's like the price is, and forget the price for a second. I'm just thinking process wise. Let's say I said this only. It's 10 lives of people in Hamas captivity. Why should we stop fighting?
I must to say something about that deal, the different from different deals, that all we hear about what we know about this deal, that is just rumors. It's the first deal that only the New York Times got rumors. So even the
details might not be true?
Most of the details from what I'm getting happening behind the scenes to what getting out there, I don't think they aligned.
I'll tell you where I have an issue here. we know what the moving pieces are. We know who Hamas is. We know what they're going to do. They're going to continue being Hamas as long as they're allowed to continue being Hamas.
Hamas will stay Hamas.
Yeah, Hamas, they're not going to change. Only a madman would imagine that these people are going to change. And since we know that that's the reality of it, and also we have something very different right now, and we said this previously, Israel isn't the same Israel, and the U.S. isn't the same U.S. that we were 3 weeks ago. We've proven to the world and to ourselves that we are stronger and more accurate than people imagined we were. And knowing that, having the full support of the White House in this operation in the Gaza Strip. I mean, we've heard Ambassador Huckabee in Israel, we've heard President Trump in the U.S. speak very, very, very strongly in support of Israel, fully finishing the operation against Hamas and threatening Hamas to carry out even stronger actions and stronger sanctions on them in the sense of removing aid if they don't cooperate with this agreement. And I'd say, now, when again in history, and I don't say this lightly, when again in history are you going to be on the tail end of destroying Iran, of rebuilding governments in the Middle East, Syria, Lebanon? When again are you going to have this level of military readiness in Israel and the U.S. to give in to Hamas' requests to leave half the hostages in their hand? No way. Why would we do such a thing? Keep going and keep beating them until there's no one left to fight the Israeli army and bring back all the hostages. And this isn't against the people of Gaza. This is against the Hamas terrorists. All they need to do to end this war right now, this minute, is show up at the border crossing with our hostages. And the minute they do that, that second, the war is over. So don't tell me, and all these lovely people who love the people of Gaza and care about them, they're so concerned about the war. No problem. I'm on the same page with you. Give us our hostages back. Give us the hostages back. I don't think there's a family in Israel that needs to wait for another 3 years or 5 years to get the remains or the living family member of theirs that Hamas decided not to release in this phase.
I was in shock that
Khalas,
it
enough.
actually took 5 years.
Yeah.
And right now we are 2 years with people that have been kidnapped. That's...
Yeah. And more than that, Mati and Tomer, we proved that we have an amazing intelligence capabilities. And I'm sure that behind the scenes, Israel, the Mossad, the Shabak, all of our spy agencies are operating also inside Gaza. And as this organization is crumbling, there will be leaks. And I believe that we are working towards that direction as well. And at the same time, working towards a diplomatic solution. I don't think it's like either option. Kind of like with Iran. There was the diplomatic side, and when it failed, there was the military action that took place.
60 days.
Together with the United States and Israel.
There's a difference here. And I think this is worth pointing out. When Israel attacked in Iran, you and I talked about this like every day, Israel made a point on a government level telling the people of Iran, this isn't against you. We're doing this to liberate you from the evil government that's been controlling you, that kidnapped, that hijacked the people of Iran. That's not the case in the Gaza Strip. Still to this day, the people of Gaza collaborate with Hamas to a great degree, very, very great degree. And this isn't a secret what I'm saying. The Israeli intelligence admits that it's very hard to penetrate Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. One, because people don't cooperate to the same level with the IDF. Two, because of the level of ruthlessness that Hamas has used against its own people, that they fear them so much that they don't collaborate at all, or very little with Israeli intelligence. Now, again, the situation isn't as bad now as it was 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, but still, it's a lot harder to get information. Then there's another part here. The Gaza Strip isn't like a country business as usual. This isn't Tehran or an Iranian city where life is going on sort of its course of action, and then the strike sort of disrupts it. The Gaza Strip is a war zone that is full of violent combatants on the Hamas side. That's what it's full of. And everything is set up to be a military war scene against Israel, to be an ambush site. Everything is bombed and IED'd and whatever. They're doing this because they're planning to fight indefinitely. There is no plan on their end of like, well, now that there'll be peace,
stopping the fight.
Well, I'm going to go back to building my flower garden. There is no story like that. No, and let's be honest here.
People in Israel, like back to digging the tunnel.
Yeah, they did it now in the last couple of months. The minute you stop the military operation, they go back to digging tunnels and setting bombs and planting bombs everywhere in the Gaza Strip.
And they did just in a tunnel that Muhammad Sinwar was attacked and his henchmen were terminated. Hamas now is trying to rebuild and reuse this tunnel again. And this is what they're doing. I mean, nonstop. This is the only thing that they know how to do. This is the hard part about all of Gaza. It's hard to explain, I think, to people that haven't been there or haven't lived in Israel, the fact that the Palestinian population in Gaza voted for Hamas and still up till today are supportive of Hamas. Of course, it's not all the Palestinian people, but it is a big majority that still has the ideology and grew up on these narratives that they need to fight the people of Israel and the Jewish people, and that's their only future. And this is because they've been educated and brainwashed for more than 20 years and more than that to hate Israel, to hate the Jewish people, and to carry armed resistance against the people of Israel. And when you have a whole, people's group that's what they think, then it's very hard to try and make any kind of long-term agreement, any kind of future building, coexisting with these people. And this is a piece that the world, I think the international community is missing in this conflict, is that you need to have two people that want to have a peaceful life together to achieve an agreement. And we do not have that in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and we never had it.
So that's true. I have some information.
That's the most true, though, for the people of Gaza. I want to just correct what you said, Yair. It's the most true for the people of Gaza. I'd say in Judea and Samaria, that's not across the board true. There are people there that want a regular life, and there are those who don't. But in the Gaza Strip, it seems like across the board, they live a life devoted to violence and to destruction. And they've done so with and without the presence of Israel. Look, Israel, if people forget this, Israel didn't occupy and didn't exist in the Gaza Strip. I was there as an officer pulling out Israeli communities from the Gaza Strip in 2005 because Israel said, enough of these people, let's just give them this land, not their land. Give them this land and be done with it, because we'd rather not have a presence in here. And Hamas, instead of building a society and an economy and stuff like that, they decided to destroy everything.
The biggest.
Yeah, they built the biggest bomb site in the world.
Try on what is a terror country in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And Mati, what's up with the U.S. and Israeli alliance now? I mean, we've been training together and now officially fighting together. Is this like an all-time high in the alliance between Israel and the United States? And
I think so.
Can we use this to make changes in the world now? I also see the Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to meet with Trump again. It's like, I think he's meeting with him every week now. And Israel is a tiny, tiny country. But I guess, we are making a difference in the world if the President of the United States is talking to us all the time.
Tomer and I, as you're talking, we're going through like the notes here of some of these things. And Tomer says, so the biggest objective that the IDF has is in several of the cities. Bet Hanun is one of the top ones.
The city of Gaza, they need to eliminate it.
To finish eliminating these two brigades of Hamas terrorists and remove the underground tunnel system. And I'm saying, like, look, there is no end to this. There is no end to the fighting there.
True.
They constantly tunnel and they constantly recruit people. And unless we want to enter this, excuse me for this morbid term, unless we want to create an equation of this never-ending meat grinder where we're sending our sons and daughters to fight and get injured and possibly die in the Gaza Strip and they, against yet another generation of people, where you need to pull out the disease, which is Hamas, from the population. They're bringing a different government. Otherwise, you're just doomed to repeat this again and again and again, which we have. I'm in my early 40s. In my lifetime, we reconquered Gaza multiple times because every single time they go back to do the same thing. I'm talking back. People don't realize.
Lifetime, there was like more than 12 or 14 operations inside the Gaza Strip. Each one, we had a whole summer canceled because of that.
Yeah, let me give you an example. In 2002, I'm a young soldier in the Israeli army. It's Operation Chomat Magen, whatever it was called in English. Something shield, probably. Anyway, anyway, I don't remember what it was called in English. Anyway, the IDF takes over the big Palestinian city centers because the Palestinian Authority decided that they didn't like being a government and they'd rather go back to being terrorists. That's in a nutshell. and they start attacking Israel. Anyway, we go back into all the big Palestinian centers in Judea and Samaria, and also into the Gaza Strip. We hadn't been in the Gaza Strip at that time for, I want to say, since the late 90s because of the Oslo Accords. We sort of withdrew from them. And even back then, I was a young, I wasn't even a commander yet. I was on a tank, I remember that. And we're in the Gaza Strip, and it's again and again and again, generations of this. We're talking, that's 24 years ago almost at this point, 23 years ago when this took place. That's only my lifetime. We've been doing this for multiple lifetimes at this point. Enough. Like, we have to remove the root problem, which is Hamas and radical ideology.
Mati, we can remove the Palestinian people from the Gaza Strip altogether.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
This is the option B.
No, I mean, it's a lovely option, but I want to be honest here. There aren't many people groups in the world that other countries are willing to go to war not to take them as refugees. Think about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Besides Somaliland.
The Palestinians is one of these people.
They're the only people.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're the only people. They're the only people. Think about it, and this is not just about the Palestinians. There's a whole political and spiritual background to this story. Look, Europe has millions of Syrian refugees, of Iraqi refugees, of Lebanese refugees, millions and millions of them, Kurdish refugees. But countries are willing, and this Arab Muslim countries are willing to go to war not to take in Palestinian refugees because they've proven to them what a threat and a menace of terrorism they are to those countries. When the U.S. President Trump, what was this, 4 months ago?
Yeah.
Or 5 months ago, he started floating the idea of we'll remove some of the people of Gaza to other countries. It's going to be a great deal. They're going to love it. The Egyptians and the Jordanians.
To Egypt and Jordan, and they said no way.
No way.
Never.
No way.
Literally, like, I think the king of Jordan went and fueled his helicopter, and he's like, "I'm going to war. We're not doing this." It's like,
but don't forget that Israel and Egypt made a peace agreement. Israel wanted to give Egypt the Gaza Strip, and the Egyptians said, "No peace agreement. We don't take the Gazan people. We don't want them. They are Jordanians. They are outsiders." Back then, they said that the peace agreement can be out of the window if Israel not taking the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, and I want to be transparent with our audience. It sounds like we're going down this like rabbit hole of racism here. That's not the case. What I'm telling you is that there's a background to this whole story where the nations of the world, and specifically what used to be the Arab League of the world, they're willing to do everything. And by everything, I mean go to war multiple times, collapse economies, international boycotts, pass laws, displace peoples, anything, only with one goal, to perpetuate the state of victimhood of the Palestinian people. And not to liberate them, not to aid them, anything in their power, everything historically possible to make sure that these people never experience freedom.
It's a great business.
Never experience freedom, never experience the liberty of being a free person in a free country. That's the truth here. And the truth is, it is demonic and it is depressing at the same time. Let's think of something else with a D. Dystopian. Anyway, so...
Nice.
Anyway, so we're getting carried away. You talked about Israel and the U.S., and I'm saying this, when we talk about this agreement, what a historic time we're living in. I mean, we're two countries that have that we've been hitting the gym on a military level, where we're waiting to flex the muscles of military power, and everyone in this neighborhood knows that it's coming. Everyone knows that we can do it. So much so that some other countries are talking to the U.S. Hey guys, calm down those crazy Israelis.
What's going on with them?
So,
in the last year, the whole power in the Middle East got shifted, and it's looked like Israel is the most scary guy right now in the Middle East.
Yes,
the person that you don't mess with.
Yeah, I don't know that definitely. We're crazy. Are we crazy, or are we finally being logical? Finally being true with what we know to be the reality?
Well,
Which one is it?
I think that it's a combination of that we had to. Okay, up until now, it was only, we have the option, but we don't want to do it. We want diplomacy. We want peace. And we realized that when we're with the backs against the wall and we're under attack and fighting for our survival, all the gloves are off. And this is what Israel proved to the entire Middle East, that we are here to stay. And it's nice to see that by us staying here, this place can be a much better place than what our enemies planned for their own people and for their own futures, which is more hate, more destruction, and just expanding this evil ideology to the West, to the United States, to Europe, to Africa, to other places around this globe. And I think it's really nice to see that it goes together. I mean, we keep saying that this is a war between good and evil, and I really believe that, and it's a spiritual war. But the nice part about it is that by standing with the side, with the good guys, with God, basically, you are spreading more good in this region.
Like your shirt.
You can see that also in the way, this shirt, but also in the way that we're fighting in the Gaza Strip. Okay, so yeah, wars are terrible, and there are casualties, and always the civilians are the ones that get hurt the most. But despite all this fighting in the Gaza Strip, Israel is still carrying their moral compass with them. Before we go into our neighborhood, we let this neighborhood know, if you're not a member of Hamas, leave this area, go to a safe zone. This is the way, this is a map, go there. This is a way for you to protect your family. Same thing goes with the food distribution, the aid. The IDF is protecting the aid distribution centers in order for the Palestinian people to go there and get food. It's just amazing to see that. It would have been a lot easier for military and for the IDF in general to just bomb entire neighborhoods. But we choose not to do that. And same thing goes for our fighting in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Iran. So I'm really proud to be part of the IDF, to be an Israeli. And I think that by standing with Israel, you and I and all of us are standing alongside God's plans for this region and for a better future at large.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Preach it, Yael.
Mm-hmm.
And with that,
And with that,
please share, like, and subscribe. This is a way to help us and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. This is the message, basically.
Amen to that. And I want to pray, not pray. I want to say this in people ask what they can pray for. We're standing in a time, and I don't think I've ever said this before, where for the first time things are coming together in a way where you can see sort of in the storm clouds or the dust clouds, since we're in the Middle East, in the horizon, you can see sort of like them clearing out and something positive coming down the line in the horizon. And that positive thing is with Trump in the White House and Israel and the U.S., publicly victorious over Iran in a very dramatic way, and the proxies removed, there can be this reshuffling where the forces that want good, they're not necessarily all good, but let's call it the forces that want good. They want liberties, they want trade, they want financial, prosperity. They want freedom of movement around this region, where those forces beat the forces of evil for the time being, for the era that comes in front of us. And when that happens, we can look at something that we didn't imagine. The new Abraham Accords, that also the first time, they were a shock to everyone involved. We could have an even bigger shock, and then sort of really like squeeze down on the influence, the negative influence of the, let's call it the radical Islam that leads Iran and their proxies, and raise these countries that have been suffering under them for so many years, the Yemenites and the Lebanese and the Syrians to a certain degree, and the people of Gaza, raise them out of the ashes of what Iran left behind and rebuild something better. And that really can change the region that we live in a way that is so dramatic and so amazing that I think it's going to be, if this happens, the most dramatic and positive thing that's going to happen in my lifetime. That's how big I think this is.
Yeah, definitely. I think this podcast is coming at a very, very good timing for the 4th of July, the birthday of the United States of America. And I think that this country has still a lot to do in the world, in reshaping the world, in I don't know, bringing Judeo-Christian values to the rest of the countries around this world. And it's really needed. And it's needed because I think that in the past maybe 10 years, the definition between black and white became dissolved into this. Everything is gray, everything is accepted. And I think that God is using this war and these terrorist organizations to show clearly to all of us that there is right and there is wrong. There
Absolutely.
is good and there is bad. And we need to stand and speak up for good, to stand up for the truth because it matters and it has an effect. And this is what we are doing here at TBN Israel. We are sharing the truth. We are telling you what's happening in Israel, in the Middle East, by Israelis. We research all the Hebrew news, all the Arabic news in this region, and then we give you information so that you know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So guys, if you have stuck with us for so long, first of all, in the comments, let me know what is good to do in New York City during the 4th of July. I have my 3 kids under the ages of 6. So if there's something fun, maybe fireworks or something like that, let me know in the comments that I will know what to do, what's a good place to do. And guys, let me also know what you think about the situation in the Gaza Strip. How can we resolve and bring back our hostages? Do you think we should take the deal? Do you think we should continue with only military operations in Gaza? Let us know. And I think that's it from me here. It was great to joining you, Matti and Tomer.
Enjoy Yair.
You take care of yourself in the U.S. I hear it's, well, actually, it's supposed to be amazing. It's 4th of July weekend.
He's walking in New York City with Israel.
Everywhere you walk, you're going to stumble into a barbecue.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, definitely.
Happy 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. God bless America. And I say that not jokingly at all. What a friend America has been to us Israelis this last couple of years. Wow. Amazing time that we're living in. You'll have fun. Say hi to the family.
I will definitely.
We'll be in
and I
touch.
think it's just proof that when you bless the people of Israel, God blesses you. I didn't say that. It's in the Bible. And I think that America is living proof of that by supporting Israel during this time. Thanks, Matti.
Thank you, Yair. Hello, this is Matti here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.